everybody for attending. My name is Omari Jones. I am the author of the book, Real is Rare. This event, first and foremost, let me give a shout out to Miss Jasmine. She set everything up, brought us out. Also, Mr. Safari, he helped with the setup. He had the book set up and had everything ready to go. And then also, I want to introduce my co-host, who will be interviewing me and helping me guide me through this fireside chat, Mr. Joseph Cornick. Joseph is a very nice guy, very humble. So I will do a proper introduction because if I let him do it, he'll just say his name and try to roll through it. Me and Joseph met a couple years ago with an initiative, the CBIM curriculum. It's the Coaching Boys into Men program, where we focus on teaching young boys how to have healthy relationships, to recondition themselves on how they think and how they see young girls. So what we believe is if we get to them early on, then we can help prevent abusive, physical, and emotional, verbal relationships. So we bring them in, yes ma'am, we sit them down, we teach them, one of the most important things that I really enjoyed about it was we basically forced them to not objectify women. So we basically make sure that they see and respect them as a person. So they aren't a male, they're a female, but they're a person, they're not just a girl. So, and we're very particular on the verbiage that we use, and it's a 10 sessions. We bring them in one per week. I actually incorporated, if you look up there and see one of the videos, along with the Summer League basketball program with the Parks and Recs department. And so again, we collaborated with the Georgia Department of Health, Clayton County Parks and Recreations, and Georgia Network to End Sexual Assault. Joseph, if you want to add anything, I think I did an all right job with the introduction.
No, you did a great job. Joseph Cornick, nice to meet you guys. Like Omar said, we've been working with the youth across the state at this point. He's coming in on the rec center side. I've been working with high schools across the state, the metropolitan area, as well as some of the more rural areas of Georgia, reaching about 34 high schools, maybe like 15 centers or so with this program. Been doing it since I graduated, so it's time. I feel like okay. Anyway, Mario, really cool dude. When we met, I remember during the training, we had a great time with the training, just hitting it off because we both are passionate about making sure that the youth have a better outlook than the one that's handed to them. And when we lead into their own devices and instruction, we know some of the pitfalls coming that we want to help them avoid. So I'm gonna let you finish your spiel, and then we're gonna get into it.
And to piggyback on that, since our introduction to the CBIM, we have coordinated a youth summit where we talk about like anti-violence, trying to create different initiatives in the public schools in Clayton County. To move on, I'm gonna turn it over to Joseph. Joseph has a couple questions, and we're gonna open up this discussion to get it going. I'm gonna let him take over right now.
All right, so now for this aptitude test, questionnaire. Let's get started right away. So I know that part of your inspiration for your book was the post that you made that went viral. So I want to ask, how does it feel? Like, you know what I'm saying? The community is begging you for like, yo, we need more. Tell me about some of the things that were going through your mind as you were formulating, how to go about tackling some of the requests that you received.
So, anybody that's ever gone viral knows that it's, for the most part, it's super random. Like I said, it was 2020, it was COVID, everybody was at home, everybody's on their phone. And so I just made a post, I started to ramp up some of the different things that I was thinking, some of my ideas, and just putting it out to my friends, family. And then I posted it, and then before I knew it, I got like a good traction, a lot of, likes, shares. But then my business partner, Chad, who's actually sitting right there with the camera, he told me that we needed to get more eyes on it. So we put a little advertising dollars behind it, and it just took off. And what a lot of the men were saying was that they agreed as far as like their purpose, but a lot of them kept asking me, how do they find their purpose? And so for me, when you write a book, people try to put you in a box as like an expert, but I don't feel like I'm an expert. I just think that I have a unique experience, which is my experience, the same as everybody else in this room. So if you can, articulate and communicate and effectively tell people like some of the things that you've experienced, but also how you process those experiences, I think that that's how we can help one another. So with the book, that's just what I tackled. So the different messages were coming in, comments were coming in, And it was just centered around how do you find your purpose. So I just wanted to create a book telling people the steps that I took in order to achieve that.
Okay, respect. So, for you guys, you have the books. When you open it, one of the first things you're going to see is a quote from the Notorious. B.I.G. So I want to know, because I am a huge advocate for music, and that music reflects the inside. You listen to music, the music that you like, those types of things not only reflect what you're going through, but they also reflect how you see yourself sometimes. So with that quote that you used, I want to know, what was your mentality then when you heard it? I don't know, maybe it was like running around with kids. But now as an adult, how do you feel like music has impacted and helped you, or what tools or lessons have you learned in the music that you use to foster your push, so to speak?
To your point, I'm also a very big advocate of the influence that music can have on you. One of my biggest concerns is that everybody isn't able to separate the artist from the delivery of the message. So one of the things that I noticed, like in the public school system and dealing with just younger, impressionable males, is that they aren't able to decipher the real from the fake, so to speak. So for me, I can listen to something, Biggie, Tupac, and I can kind of dive a little deeper into the message, and then I also don't believe automatically some of the different things that they're saying. Like now we're in an era with drill music where it's, the glorification of like murder music. So everybody talking about how they're just killing somebody. And it's like, guys, if they were killing all these people, they wouldn't be able to go to the studio and continue to make this music that justifies that. Like they're just selling something, essentially stories in the glorification of something that happens, in some neighborhoods. So for me, the music is definitely influential. It's definitely something that I tap into, and I enjoy certain music, but I can see the negative impacts that it has on like some of our kids.
Okay, so let me explain to you why I asked that question. Because, like I said, music oftentimes is we use it to reflect how we feel on the inside. Let somebody else's words express how we feel, right? Yes. Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned in the book is you at one point felt like you had a mental block. Like you were at a point that you needed to have X, Y, and Z done. And no one explicitly told you that by the age of 22, you needed to have your 401k set up with your retirement plan and stuff like that. But you feel that way. How were you able to take that feeling and push past it?
That's a great question. And so I think the key is to have a big picture focus. One of the things that my dad was really big on was leadership and not being a follower. So ultimately, you have to run your own race. And what you have to realize is, some people say like life is a marathon. So, some people can finish fast, other people can finish slow, but the biggest thing is to finish and basically get through the finish line. So for me, I'm just really big on going inward and just focusing on the different things that I want and not allowing the outside pressures to make me move or react in a certain way. I just try to stay in tune. That also is a reflection of my spiritual foundation. And just, wise counsel. I lean on my friends, my family, the people that I really trust in order to fight back against those societal pressures as far as like the outside noise.
Okay. So with the same thought, again, I told you, I got something. So this clock is set up in most people's minds subconsciously, right? And so oftentimes you lead to feelings of inadequacy. But in your situation, you were known as Superstar Jones. So I want to know how does that title and how did that position of power and admiration, how did that lead and affect the relationships that you had with like, your teammates, your friends at the time? What was that like for yourself, and how do you think they might feel?
That another amazing question. It wasn't until afterwards, the years that I really went off to school and came back and started to interact with some of my former high school teammates that I noticed the impact that I had on them. And the impact that I had, they essentially conversed it to me. As wild as this situation is, you asked me that question, I bumped into one of my former teammates. He was about 2 years younger than me at Moneysville High School. And I'll never forget, like, it was probably like the second day of practice. We got there hot, sweating. And our new head coach, he was one of the young guys that, like, he could play. He had a little game to him. So the coach kind of like stood him up in front of the team and was like, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to show who you really are. You can call out one person. You can call out one person. And so I was in the back, like just kind of minding my business. He was like, and if I was you, I'd call out, the person who think they bad, the person who think they the best player on the team. And he kind of started staring at me. So I'm like, wait, is he trying to tell this kid to call me out? So I was like, hey, listen. I looked over at him. I said, hey, listen, if this is what you want to do, make the decision. And I ended up, I kind of injured him, but I injured him. But this weekend, I bumped into him and I introduced him to my current head coach. And he basically told him that experience really challenged him mentally and physically and made him push to be like a better athlete. And so the impact that I would say, to sum it all up, the impact was a lot more positive than negative because people saw me as somebody that could make it out, somebody that could pour into what they really wanted and really go and get it. I think even to piggyback in like a 3-year span, I was the only person who signed like a scholarship. And so a lot of the kids would just kind of call me and ask me different things like as far as what I needed to do. And I would always tell them, it's on you, it's about the work you put in.
I like that. So what I hear, and I'm pretty sure everyone who knows you probably hears the same thing, is that you've managed to separate your ego from pride. Because that ego is what allows you to say, this is what you want me to do. But that pride is not so much there to where you're overshadowing intentionally other people. You're allowing your own efforts and your own work to speak for itself. That's commitment. Let's see.
Talk to me.
All right. So now that we've got to that,
I want to say something real quick, just as far as that. I'm definitely appreciative of you calling that out, but I definitely think one of the processes we all have to go through as a person is killing your ego. You have to kill it. And if you're driven and filled with nothing but hubris and ego, you won't be able to positively affect the people around you. That's why, to your point, like the relationship ended up being more positive than negative because although we were put in a position to compete against one another, it was more so about the work and us bettering each other in the process.
So y'all dealing with sociology, psychology, enthusiasts. All right. All right. So on this topic, because we're talking about sociology, psychology, let's talk about mental health. Okay. What are some of the hurdles that you had to go through during the time of, I know you injured yourself with your Achilles as a superstar athlete? What are some of the mental struggles that you fought and overcame during that time?
Well, the first thing I want to address is that superstar was my nickname, but I wasn't a superstar. I was pretty good. I worked hard. I was more so of an effort guy. I really kind of I wanted to always be the hardest worker. That's one of the things that my dad instilled in me. Just outwork everybody. Kind of more that old school traditional mentality. And then to your point or to your question about my Achilles, if you've ever played a sport or if you've ever dealt with like bodily injury or getting sick or getting hurt, like it's tough. It can get dark. As an athlete, you're always on this clock where you have to do things very fast. Even like the state of your mind is in season and out of season. And so you don't even get to enjoy the 4 seasons over the course of a year, but you're looking at when we are playing and competing or when I'm working and training to get ready to play and compete. And so when you're hurt, all you get to focus on is the time that you're missing, and essentially you get the feeling like you're missing out and you're running out of time. So as far as the mental health, like I've seen guys turn to, alcohol, drugs, pills. I've seen, I've witnessed firsthand guys turn into addicts. And so it's really big and really important for you to have like a support system, somebody that you can pour into, somebody that you can talk to, and just that support from your teammates to kind of keep you out of that. And again, allow you to focus on the big picture. A lot of athletes that really run into trouble, all they see themselves is as an athlete. And I would say around those first couple like major injuries, I kind of knew that I had to start seeing myself beyond the game because I knew that it wasn't gonna last forever. Like I said, I popped my quad, I had a knee surgery, my Achilles. I didn't have almost any major lower body injury you could think of. And so I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to play forever. And so I knew that I had to kind of pour into some other things and figure out things beyond the game.
So with all the injuries that you experienced, you made a mention of you had to change the way that you viewed yourself, right? How would you tell a young athlete, a young individual, that change, which is often feared, is something to be embraced?
I'll quote, and y'all don't beat me up about who the philosopher was, but I know that they said, I believe it was Aristotle, but don't quote me. But change is the only constant. And so, in order to succeed, in order to thrive, even as long as you stay alive, the only thing that's going to remain the same since the time you were one until the present day is things change. And so, the big picture, what I would tell an athlete is, you're an athlete that plays a sport, but that's not who you are. So you're a person that participates in an activity. You have to separate the two, or you're going to have identity issues. A lot of these guys, you'll hear about these different NFL players that retire and they struggle with all these different things, and it's because they were so consumed in who they were as the athlete that they lost track of who they were as a person. And so I always remain grounded to understand that I'm Amari Jones from Clayton County, Georgia, and I'm basically I play football, but I'm not a football player.
Yeah.
All right, so for these next few questions, I'm gonna read them exactly how I have them written because I honestly feel like you'll understand why as I go through them. Because they're targeting some of the key points that you mentioned in your book, but I wanted to understand from the author some of the mind frame and the thought processes that went into them as you created it, because you listed them. All right, so for isolation, how do you avoid feelings of loneliness and being misunderstood and judged by those that you separated from?
You're going to experience some loneliness, but loneliness is not always a bad thing. What loneliness should be is the gauge for you to find yourself, because people that are in tune with themselves, they don't get so much lonely as much as they enjoy the solitude. A lot of people that run from being lonely have things going on internally where they can appreciate just being there with themselves. Now, on the other extreme, sometimes people can become so isolated that they aren't able to build positive relationships with those that are around them. So it has to be a healthy balance between the two.
Second part about that was how did you deal with, because as judgment is going to come from the people that knew you for what they thought you were, for those that you inspired, that no one perceived you in that light. How do you deal with the judgment and the misconception that something is drastically off about you?
You can't get caught up in it. One of another thing, the lessons that I learned coming up is when you're on a track or a trajectory to, you're chasing success, you're trying to build yourself up, you're going to change. And everybody can't go. Some people want to stay where they are. Some people aren't able to see the big picture. Other people are not going to have the same vision for yourself that you're going to have for yourself. And you have to be willing to accept that. You can't please everybody. And that's just the bottom line of it. So if the judgment or the critiques is rooted in negativity, then those people they're there for a season and you have to move on past them. As long as it can come off as a judgment or a critique, but if it's rooted in love and rooted in empowering you, then those people will understand the trajectory that you're on or the things that you're chasing, and they'll support you. If they can't support you, then they are in your corner anyway. So it's time to move on from them anyway.
Okay. Going into the next one, you said fear is nothing. So this is kind of comical, but answer. Are you going to dip your toe in the water or are you jumping in?
I'm jumping in. And I ain't gonna make the joke that I was gonna make, but yeah, I'm jumping in.
All right. The reason I asked that question is because how do you take the lack of or dealing with fear and separate from being reckless? Because fear oftentimes is you being cautious about or cautionary towards some of the repercussions that you might face for making certain decisions. So how do you go about managing that fear and knowing that certain things are real and certain things are fear itself?
I would say that recklessness is rooted in irresponsibility, and also negativity. So you have to be conscious of the things that's going on around you. Even if we plan to, use an example of like driving, you shouldn't have a fear of a car accident happening, but you need to know that it is a possibility. So I need to check out my mirrors. I need to be focused. I don't need to be texting or surfing the internet while I'm driving. So fear is there in order to let you know the importance or the potential of something happening, good or bad. But recklessness is rooted in not adhering to any of the warning signs or anything that could essentially protect you from harm, and you just pushing forward. So you have to be calculated and you have to understand those roadblocks, but you got to push past responsibly.
Okay. All right. So procrastination is the serial killer of dreams. How did you apprehend it? And were you able to identify the triggers that lead to people or yourself, for instance, procrastinating?
I think we all procrastinate, but I think the growth in it is understanding what procrastination is. It's ultimately, similar to, like I said, with a fear, it's just a roadblock from keeping us from accomplishing or completing the task at hand. So we have to see it, we have to be able to identify it, but then we have to decide that that finish line or that finished product is more important than my mind telling me to do something else. You got to lock in and you got to push forward.
All right. So, with being open-minded, I'm sure you had plenty of suggestions, opportunities present themselves as you work towards your goals as you were creating them. How were you able to remain focused on the task at hand when I'm pretty sure lucrative or not sounding things are popping up as distractions?
It's about your North Star. It's about your foundation. It's about what you truly want. It's about being able to go inward and focus on the things that you desire as long as it aligns with the right thing to do and your spiritual foundation. Oftentimes, different things are going to pop up in our lives. Like I talked about, change is the only constant. Different things are going to show up, but it's up to you in order to decide where it is that you're going. And then you have to constantly evolve and be more efficient with the plan as to how to move forward.
All right. And then for the 10 toes, standing on business.
Sir, yes, sir.
It's commendable, but what are some of the hard sacrifices that come with that most people don't talk about?
I think one of the biggest sacrifices that will always show up is going to be in your relationships. You have to find a balance. I mean, sometimes it's a little easier to focus on the work because you may be reaping the rewards, but you have to decide what you want it to look like in the end. Do you want to be super successful and unable to share it with anybody? Or do you want to be the most popular but not a lot of things to hang your hat on? So you have to just decide what it is that you want and then ultimately focus on that and stand on business, 10 toes down, and understand that, everybody can't go, but the people that you bring along with you are there in order to help you get to that goal. Because if you have the right support system, whatever it is that you want, they're going to support it. And the dangerous thing about that is it can be good or bad. That's why it's up to you to decide what it is, and then you lean on them to help propel you to that finish line.
Yeah. All right. Next endeavors, future steps, plans, what's going on next?
So I would like to announce that I received a promotion last week. So thank you. In my previous role, I was a center manager for the Clayton County Parks and Recs department. But going forward, I will be the cultural arts administrator for Clayton County. So I'm actually switching over from Parks and Recs to the senior services department. And as far as future, I'm just trying to wrap up. I'm doing this Google project management certification. I'm contemplating going back to school. I'm still coaching football, mentoring the youth, but just more programs for the community, more things to pour into. Also, I want to write 10 books before I'm 40. So I got one out the way, so I gotta get back to work on that.
Well, those were the gist of my questions. Now, one popped up because I couldn't get over it as I read the book, and it's something that we share in common. It's that foundation that you speak of, two-parent household structure, the support system. For people who don't have a positive parental structure system, maybe one parent doubts them or there's some type of disagreement, disgruntledness between them, how would you suggest that the athlete in that situation handle that?
So that's one of the things that I really struggle with in my mentoring with my kids is a negative relationship between one or two parents. Early on, I was very naive to that fact because I was so blessed with how I came up. I can lean on my mom, I can lean on my dad. My older brother's about 5 years older than me, so he's almost like that second dad. Kind of always looked up to him, respected him, and so when an athlete is dealing with a negative relationship with the parent, the main thing that I just kind of motivate them and get them to understand is that ultimately it's your life. I'm not telling cut your parent off, or I will always advise people to try to mend that relationship because family are the friends that you don't get to pick. It's blood, it's thicker than water. And so I would just basically try to get them to mend that relationship, but then also just understand the power that they have within themselves to make whatever they want to come true. You'll always have critics. Ideally, it doesn't show up as a parent or aunt or uncle or a sibling, but in the case that it does, you got to go inward, focus on yourself, and just decide what you want and what you want it to look like.
Excellent.
All right, well, that concludes all the questions that I have prepared for today. I do want to ask our audience if they might have any questions for me. That's a lot of hands.
You know, the quiet one. I'm being nice.
Go ahead.
I think we all agree the world that we live in now is a little different than 4 years ago. What do you see for our youth as challenges?
I think the biggest thing or the biggest challenge for the youth right now is I would say it was a change in expectation. What I'm seeing with the different adults in the community, in the schools, working is not that hands-on village approach, but more so almost like a fear-based, I don't want to say anything to them, it is what it is. And then I'm also seeing more of parents are different. I'm not trying to critique any parents in the room because I don't have any kids, but I'm with kids every day. And the expectation and the way that parenting is right now is totally different. And so even to your point, 4 years ago with COVID, when my kids came back from that year off of school, like they were different. They see the world different. And then even the influence of social media, they're overexposed. Kids are, they're 9 going on 21 as far as the understanding and the different things that they've seen. So I think, no, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you can talk.
That's where I was headed. Are we going to teach them to put these down?
I wish, but now, the parents are more advocates for them having the digital devices than the kids are. So
That's insane, but I see this as a mother of 6, a grandmother of 10. I also work at a theater. We had a situation a couple weeks ago during a ballet. They asked for legal reasons not to photography, not to take pictures. So we were telling the parents, please put your phones up. I got cussed out. Yeah. That's what we're teaching our kids. And I'm saying from a grandma and a mom, this needs to be addressed. Even at my age, and I think some of you guys might say it, I'm sorry, it's too much. We're seeing too much stuff. And I think, boys and girls and how they treat each other is important, but they've got to focus. I tell my grandkids, I'm constantly worried about, are we going to possibly end up in war one day? God hope us that we're not. But like I tell my grandson, I'd hate to have to tell you to put down the phone and pick up a rifle. And that's where I see us possibly headed. I'll shut up now.
You're fine. I have to take mental notes on the points that So you said that the idea is to cause them to put the phone down, right? I would argue that that's doing them a disservice.
Right.
The reason I would say that is because the phone is not the issue, it's simply a tool. It's how you instruct them on how to use it.
Oh, most definitely.
Because
it's not putting it down, but if I'm your mom, or if I'm your grandma, or I'm a school teacher, or a mentor, somebody like you, which you guys both are awesome, please, you are. If they're not taught to disengage from some things while they're being taught other things, guess what? They won't pick it up. As an adult, I get that sometimes. There's too much. Stop. Go, your turn.
So, solution is to actively put yourself in their trajectory and usage of the device. What I mean by that is, oftentimes, my parents are old. My parents are old. I've always had the oldest parents in the class since I was born. So I've come to understand that the way that everyone else's parents work is not the same as mine. And so oftentimes I found myself having to show them certain things on how to use their devices. What I mean by actively being involved is you as an adult who is not as familiar with something like social media, TikTok, hey, come show me how to do X, Y, and Z. And by you doing that, you're enhancing their familiarity with the device. But what that leads to is them being at a better level than the average person, which potentially leads to job opportunities, could lead to more creativity. So the example that I have is my nephew. I remember when my sister had my nephew, I used to hate the fact that since when were we giving little kids tablets, right? It bugged the mess out of me, like, go outside and play, what are you doing? But then it dawned on me, he has the opportunity because of his interest to learn something that I never did. So instead of me telling him to put it down, okay, if you're gonna pick it up, let's learn how to code. Look at Python.
It goes by what you guys just changed. I'm a 40-year employee of IBM. Okay, so I can actually say been there and done most of this. Okay, I remember when they first went to computers. But you know what? No matter how much we're taught, it still changes constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. And I've only been retired for 5 years. But I think among what you guys have said, it's constantly to teach our kids and our future to be adaptable to change. It changes every hour. And like I tell my kids and I tell my grandkids, you know, my generation might have messed up the world a little bit. Y'all need to fix it.
I have one more. It was the last one. The last miserable that I took. You made mention of. So it was along the lines of kind of like when we were speaking about teaching the kid how to drive and not be scared.
Right.
You mentioned the ballet and how you have to allow them. So one of the things that we did in our program, the Coaching Voice program, was we explained behavior, visual behavior. It's actually a lesson that we talk to the students about because most adults, as well as most students, don't have a proper education on how to use Facebook. There's no class that you grew up taking or I learned on Facebook etiquette, Instagram etiquette, what's supposed to, what not supposed to. So one of the best things you can do is to educate them, as well as to let them know, because you know, for any one of us in here that wants to get a job, what does your employer look at?
Right.
Your social media. It's instant. You're conscious of that with everything that you do.
Yeah, right.
The kids don't have that fear or caution because they move the reckless because they don't know any better.
Right.
So our job is to step in, teach them, show them how to properly use things, and then we allow them, like you said, with the driving. You know that anyone that could be an accident, you know that people drive, you know that all these things happen. Don't let it be you.
I have a question on like the older kids that you mentor. Maybe they're not the athlete, maybe they're not going to go to college and pursue that method. Do you promote community service or military service or something to bring them forward?
Yes, so oftentimes I don't necessarily push any one thing or one specific thing, but I do push them to get an understanding that sooner than later, it's going to be on you. And yes, you're going to have to work. Prime example, I had a set of twins that went off to school on football scholarships. Halfway between their sophomore year, one decided that he didn't want to play football anymore. He enlisted in the Army. And then another one came back home and I helped him get a job at a rec center. So I explained to them, okay, you guys are deciding that college or a degree isn't the route you're going to take, but whatever route you take, you need to pour into it. So you need to go be the best cadet you could be and then climb the ranks. And then also, you in the department with me and I put that stamp on you. I got you in the building, so you're going to have to work like you used to for me on the football field in order to take care of yourself and your future family.
So I have a 32-year-old, I have a 16 and 14 I'm a 3-boy mom. I'm also a single black mother here in America. So the challenge is real. The 16-year-old, his philosophy is, if you don't want to be bullied on social media, don't be on social media. The 14-year-old is all in. So he's in 9th grade now, and since he started in 9th grade, I have suspended his phone twice. I have possession of it right now. So I heard what you said about not taking it away. My talk with him just the other day when he asked for it back was, his question was, do you think my behavior has changed since you took my phone? And I said, no, son, I don't think that. And he said, well, it's not working. And I said, I said, but whose choice is that? Here's my demands for your responsibility to increase and your attitude to become more positive. So what I'm not going to do is allow you to release that on a device with internet capabilities where your responsibility or lack thereof and your poor attitude can be displayed. So I'm limiting the opportunities for him to exercise irresponsibility and poor attitude, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible. And we just had a court case with the Oxford High School mom, and they pulled the records of the cell phone communication between her and her son. And it was discovered that in all of the text communication, she said the word love 3 times. So the child was, of course, communicating in hate or other things, right? So the device I gave him was primarily to communicate with me. That's why he has the device. It has other capabilities that he should use, but use responsibly. If he's not doing that, then I have to take that device away. And I'm the mom too, because I'm old, and you live in my house, I have access to everything, especially if I'm paying a bill. So I periodically go through my children's phone. It's appalling to most of their teammates' moms and all of the other PTA moms that I deal with. They think that's a violation of their privacy. Well, you don't get that in my house.
From when a child's mind is not developed enough to make conscious decisions, and as the adult, we have to make it for them. Whether they like us or not, we're not their friend.
No.
We are their parent, and we're supposed to guide them into a healthy relationship into adulthood. And if that's making difficult decisions, that's what you have to do. Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Yo, so this is actually like one of my favorite topics. This is why I didn't mind your questions.
Well, I said jump for that.
You know, look, so we have these conversations literally regularly amongst our students. My sister that I mentioned earlier, my nephew, she's a single parent, and I've had to adapt my mind to be able to be both uncle and positive role model. See what I'm saying? And it's because I understand that if there's a lack of it, if there is no role model or no one to look up to, they're left to their own devices. And when they have literal devices, the internet is the role model.
Yeah.
Are you following me? So, to your point of the authority in the situation, there's no way in the world we're having a discussion of whether a child has say-so if he can have a phone that you pay for.
Right.
It's not possible. It's not possible. The simple solution is I'm just not going to pay for it, and I will.
Right.
So I said it to say that if the child doesn't understand the authority and the nature of the relationship as far as that transaction is concerned, then there's a deeper issue. That's the reality of it. I've never been good. I will tell you, I'm not good at mincing words when it comes to children respect because I have those older parents I mentioned before, and that's my foundation. It's always, even when I wanted to buck up, and I told my dad I was sagging my pants and not wearing a belt. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was a tough guy. There's a, I found out about old men street. It's very real. Now, you as a mom, you definitely wear multiple hats, right? And you have to allow for your other sons to be able to have a conversation with your youngest. None of them are the father in the situation, but their responsibility is to make sure you're not overloading yourself and bearing the, because you have the silver lining in the situations that you have young men. You're doing your best, and as much as I love my sister, yourself, and all women in that predicament, you are fighting an uphill battle and you know it.
Okay.
Statistically, one of the first papers I did in college, because my sister got, she had my nephew as I went to college. So every socioeconomic class, every sociology class, psychology class, I was trying to figure out what's going on with my nephew. I found out he's more at risk to adverse behaviors.
Yep.
He's more at risk to prison sentences.
Yep.
He's more at risk to alcoholism and drug addiction.
Yep.
All of these things are because of the predicament that he's born into. So now how do I fight that? You already go the extra mile.
Yeah.
You know it because you feel it, you're doing what you can. You have to have a support system.
Yeah.
If you don't have all the answers, like how you're asking about the technology and stuff like that, look for opportunities in your community in which the conversations are catered to them. We do the Coaching Boys into Men program, right? These conversations are what we have with our students regularly. You might not be able, I'm not saying you can't, I don't know what your financial situation looks like, but oftentimes moms put their boys in sports so that they have some level of positive role model, whether it be the coaches, the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
They learn some level of discipline.
Yeah.
If you can't do that because of a financial situation, time constraints, whatever, you have to find another outlet. And what in time that does is it changes his angst that he's going through as a teenager going through puberty.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely a factor. He's not crazy, it's just that his hormones are out of whack right now. And even with his response to the cell phone being taken, right? Clearly it's not working. It hit home because you're looking at it like, dang, it's not. It's like, what else are the other options, am I right?
Well, I'm an academic, so I encourage that. So the brothers already shut him down. All right. And so he felt like he could have that dialogue with me. So and the challenge was, if my efforts are to change the behavior and his behavior is not changing, then my efforts need to change. So I get it. However, my point was, I'm not changing your behavior. You're entitled to that. You're in charge of that. But what I do have control over is where your behavior is displayed. I can limit that. So he needed to hear that being said. So he wanted to find his own agency and autonomy in being able to express himself and be able to communicate and all those things. So I get it, but he didn't hear that piece about what I can control, I will.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to jump in and let you know is that don't give up and don't let those other parents influence you to let up on them. You're raising up a young boy, he's 14 years old. You probably think he knows any and everything, and you got to stay on. Also, continue to pour into him, though, and like you said, you're academic, effectively communicate the expectation, but also just continue to let him know that your mentality and your behavior is not up to my standard. Therefore, this phone is going to be with me until I feel like you're able to positively represent that last name that we both hold.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought there would be an opportunity when I was responding to him saying it was a disservice. So I just wanted to hear some some offering on why. I mean, I'm not good at really bending over like that, but I wanted to hear, if I was missing a piece.
I would say no. I don't think you're missing a piece. I think that's just what comes with mentoring young boys. They're not gonna always agree. They're not gonna always be receptive to the message. Some lessons take longer to learn. And so you just got to keep pouring into them. Like I said, it's rooted in love and rooted in positivity. And again, you're making sure that he represents the family name well. So if he's doing fussing at the house, if you hand him the phone, he's gonna fuss on the internet because he's not processing the lessons just yet. So hold on to that phone and tell him he gonna have to tighten up. Go.
You got that on camera, right?
I know.
Did anybody else have any questions?
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. I was actually going to piggyback on the point that Jones just made. I also grew up with older parents, and there was I guess a stricter standard that I didn't always agree with. But what I would say is, I think that there's this unintentional kind of like programming that happens in that moment. Like, you don't have to agree with it, but as you get older, it'll become a part of you before you, and I think that's important. I think a lot of kids don't have that today. They get, you whine or whatever, you get your way, things change because everybody wants to make kids happy. Kids are happy, like, life's not as bad as they feel in a moment. And as you grow up, you start to realize, oh, this is a part of me now, and I didn't know when it became a part of me, but it's a thing. And so I was just piggybacking off of that.
I'll take one more question because I don't want to take up the whole time till 6. Want y'all to do a little mix and mingle when y'all been kind of sitting still for a little minute. Okay, Jazz, talk to me.
So, from the big publishing falls under your name is Tribe Power. Can you discuss Tribe Power?
Thank you so much. Real quick, Marcus, would you mind standing up for me? Just to show everybody, Tri Power, that's not an E in the red. Those are 3 bars that represents mind, body, and soul. Before I created Prolific Publishing, my publishing company, I created an athleisure brand that was really about enhancing people's physical, mental, and spiritual strength. So I feel like in order for us to positively impact everyone around us, we have to be strong people. One of my favorite sayings is you can't pour from an empty cup. And so the foundation of Tri Power, the belief was that if we empower and continue to build ourselves, then we become and get closer to the best version of ourselves. So the answer, Ms. Jasmine, Tri Power is all about building your physical, mental, and spiritual strength. And I have a website, TRIPOW3R.com. It's also in the book. But yeah, that's all the questions. Again, make sure you guys get some of this charcuterie board. I also want to give a round of applause for Joseph. He did an amazing job. It's my guy. And then another shout out to the staff here that helped set everything up and help make this possible. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, concerns, just talk to me. I'll be here until it's over. Thank you.